Why did the US Navy suddenly stop mapping certain parts of the Pacific Ocean in the late 90s? And why does every single culture on Earth, from the Amazon to the Arctic, have the exact same drawing of a fish man? It is not a coincidence. Today, we are decoding the viral videos that experts said were fake, only to find out they contain biological data that cannot be CGI. We are going to show you the proof that has been hidden in plain sight. By the end of this, you will never look at the water the same way again. When AI meets myth. We are talking about a video that surfaced from a fishing boat in the middle of the night. The deck lights are flickering, casting long, creepy shadows on the black water. Suddenly, the surface breaks. You see a creature with violet blue skin. It is not the dull gray of a dolphin or the white belly of a shark. This skin shimmers like metallic scales, reflecting the light in a way that computer graphics struggle to replicate. The creature has golden eyes, sharp teeth, and veins pulsing across a face that looks disturbingly human. But it is the movement that triggered the AI's red flags. The creature charges the boat, screaming. It is a high-pitched, piercing sound that distorts the microphone. The software analyzed the lung capacity needed to make that noise while treading water. It concluded that no known marine animal could produce that specific frequency. It also ruled out a human diver because the speed at which the creature breached the water would have snapped a human spine. Yeah, about that. The skeptics rushed to say it was a filter. They said it was generated by a computer. But the AI detected subtle water physics, the way the droplets hit the camera lens, the chaotic refraction of light, that are nearly impossible to fake perfectly. If this is a hoax, it is the most expensive and scientifically accurate hoax in history, and that is putting it lightly. Then there is the footage from the coral reef in the Philippines. This one is even harder to explain away. A diver is filming inside a deep, narrow crevice. It is a claustrophobic nightmare, the kind of place where you can barely turn around. In the shadows, a pale face appears. It has floating hair and eyes that don't blink. When the diver shines the light, the creature does not swim away like a fish. It recoils like a human being caught doing something they shouldn't. The scary part is the exit. With one flick of a tail, it shoots out of the cave, leaving a cloud of bubbles. The velocity was calculated to be faster than an Olympic swimmer with fins, but slower than a tuna. It sits right in the uncanny valley, where a humanoid aquatic species would exist. The AI analysis highlighted the muscle groups used in that kick. It showed a pelvic structure that is a hybrid between a human hip and a marine tail. Basically, the computer is telling us that anatomically, this thing makes sense. It works. Biology allows for it. We just have not put it in our textbooks yet. And that is what makes these viral clips so unsettling. They are not showing us magic. They are showing us biology that we are too afraid to admit is real. Everyone is obsessed with the idea that we know everything about the planet. We have mapped the moon and Mars, but we have barely scratched the surface of our own oceans. 95% of the underwater world is a total mystery to us. That is millions of miles of deep trenches, underwater caves, and vast, empty plains where anything could be hiding. When you look at the Malaysia River footage, the reality sinks in. A man is filming a muddy riverbank near a village. It is not the deep ocean. It is right next to where people live. He spots something slithering into the water. It has a human head, shoulders, and arms, but the bottom half drags behind it like a heavy snake or a fish. It dives without a splash. The audio in that video is raw panic. The man is not acting. His breathing is erratic. His voice cracks. The AI sentiment analysis of his voice confirms genuine, uncontrolled fear. He saw a predator, and the fact that it was so close to a populated area suggests that these things are not just staying in the deep anymore. They are curious. Or maybe they are running out of food down there and coming up to hunt. The crazy part is, we have been ignoring the signs for years. We treat these videos as entertainment. We scroll past them on our phones while waiting for the bus. But what if we are looking at the first real evidence of a species that rivals us in intelligence? A species that has watched us pollute their home and is finally deciding to show itself. The AI has done its job. It has decoded the pixels and found the truth. Now, the question is not if they are real. It is what they are planning to do next. But the digital evidence is just the tip of the iceberg, because the government has been dealing with this long before the internet even existed. The $1 million secret. It is not that simple though. If this was just about shaky videos on the internet, we could all sleep easy. But when you have military reports and government officials getting involved, the story gets a lot darker. We tend to trust people in uniform. We trust engineers and ministers. So when they start running away from the water in terror, you have to ask yourself, what is really going on? Let's talk about Zimbabwe in the year 2012. This is not a legend from 500 years ago. This happened in the modern era. The government was building two massive dams near Gokwe and Mutare. These were huge infrastructure projects worth millions of dollars. But suddenly, the work stopped dead. The workers, tough men used to hard labor, refused to go near the water. They were not asking for more money. They were asking to leave. They claimed that creatures, half human, half fish, were grabbing them. They felt cold, slimy hands wrapping around their ankles and pulling them down into the murky depths. Some workers vanished for days before reappearing, traumatized and unable to speak. Now, usually the government would laugh this off. They would fire the workers and hire new ones. And get this, that is exactly what they did. They brought in foreign workers, skeptics who did not believe in local superstitions. But within a week, those foreign workers were packing their bags too. They saw the same things. They saw pale figures watching them from the waterline. They saw ripples moving against the current. The situation got so bad that the Minister of Water Resources, Nkomo, had to go on public television and admit it. He actually said, "All the workers I sent there have vowed not to return." Think about that. A high-ranking government official admitting that mermaids, or whatever they were, had shut down a national construction project. They eventually had to hire local elders to perform cleansing rituals just to get the crew back on site. So, here's the deal. You don't halt a multi-million-dollar project for a fairy tale unless the threat is physically real, unless there is something in that water that can actually hurt people. But if you think that is crazy, look at what happened during World War II. We have records from 1943 in the Kai Islands of Indonesia. A Japanese surveillance team was stationed there to watch the ocean for enemy ships. Instead, they found themselves watching something else. The soldiers reported seeing small humanoid figures in the water. The locals called them orang ikan, which literally translates to fish people. These were not the beautiful mermaids from Disney movies. They were about 4 feet tall with pinkish salmon-colored skin. They had spikes running down their spines and mouths that looked like the wide, gaping jaws of a carp. One night, the soldiers saw these creatures playing in a lagoon. They were jumping out of the water, landing on the beach, and running on frog-like legs. The Japanese sergeant, Taro Horiba, was bewildered. He eventually spoke to the village chief, who told him these creatures were common and often got caught in fishing nets. Later, the soldiers actually found a dead one on the beach. Sergeant Horiba sketched it. He described the fingers having sharp claws and the eyes being large and glassy. He wanted to send the body back to Japan for study, but the war was intensifying and survival took priority. But the report exists. A disciplined military unit trained to identify enemy threats identified a fishman species living in the Indonesian islands. And that brings us to Israel. Fast forward to the year 2009. The town of Kiryat Yam is a modern, bustling coastal city, but people started calling the police. Not 1 or 2 people, but dozens. They all reported the same thing, a creature sunbathing on the rocks at sunset. Witnesses said it looked like a young woman, but when it noticed people watching, it would twist its body and dive, revealing a massive, powerful tail. The reports were so consistent that the mayor Shmuel Siso did something unprecedented. He offered a $1 million reward, not for a dead body, not for a capture, just for a verifiable photo. $1 million. You do not put that kind of money on the table if you think it is a joke. The town council was serious. They knew something was out there. NBC News even sent a crew. They camped out on the beach for days. They managed to capture a long-distance shot of a figure splashing on the surface and diving in a way that no human could. The investigation was eventually quieted down. The reward was never officially claimed, although many people submitted evidence that was confiscated or dismissed as inconclusive. But the question remains, why would a modern government official risk his reputation on a mermaid hunt? Unless he had seen something himself. Unless the police reports were too detailed to ignore. What most people don't realize is that these government encounters follow a pattern. They happen in isolated areas or restricted zones. They involve credible witnesses, soldiers, construction crews, police officers, and they always end with a sudden silence. The reports are filed away, the rewards are withdrawn, and the public is told to move on. But the ocean does not forget, and neither do the people who have seen these things face to face. The government might be able to hide the paperwork, but they cannot hide the history that has been written in ship logs for centuries. What happened on a lonely Scottish coast 200 years ago proves this isn't a new phenomenon. The consistency of the myth. We like to think we are the smartest generation. We have cameras in our pockets and satellites in the sky. But people 200 years ago were not stupid. They were observers. They lived and died by the sea. They knew every seal, every whale, and every shark. So when they said they saw something else, we should probably listen. Take the case of Miss Mackay. The year was 1809. The place was Thurso, Scotland. This was a time before internet hoaxes. If you lied about something like this, you were labeled insane and outcast from your village. Yet, Miss Mackay wrote a letter that was published in one of the most respected newspapers of the time. She described walking along the shore with another woman when they saw a face in the water. It was human, unmistakably human, but the skin was white and oily. The creature had long, thick hair that was green and salty. It was floating there, staring at them. Miss Mackay described the way it used its hands to push the hair out of its eyes. It was a human gesture. A seal does not do that. A walrus does not do that. The creature stayed for an hour. An hour. This wasn't a split-second hallucination. They watched it. It watched them. Eventually, it dove beneath the waves, and the way the back arched and the tail followed was burnt into their memories. The schoolmaster of the town, a man of science and logic, interviewed them separately. He concluded they were telling the truth. They had nothing to gain and everything to lose by telling this story. This brings us to the 3 C's principle of consistency. These historical accounts are terrifyingly consistent. They describe the same features over and over again, centuries apart, thousands of miles apart. Jump forward to 1967 in British Columbia, Canada. The ferry Active Pass was full of tourists and locals. Suddenly, everyone rushed to the railing. There was a woman sitting on the rocks at the entrance to the harbor. She had blonde hair and was eating a raw salmon. Now, seeing a person eating a raw fish is weird enough. But when the ferry horn blasted, the woman didn't stand up. She slithered. She used her arms to drag herself into the water, and the passengers saw the bottom half of her body. It was silver and muscular like a dolphin's tail. This was seen by dozens of people. The ferry captain logged it. A local airline pilot even reported seeing something similar from the air. A reward of $25,000 was offered by the Vancouver Aquarium for capture. They even prepared a tank. You don't prepare a tank for a myth. You prepare a tank for an animal you expect to catch. Basically, for a few weeks in the 60s, the Pacific Northwest was in a panic. People were patrolling the beaches with nets, but just as quickly as she appeared, the creature vanished. Did she migrate? Did she know she was being hunted? These stories from the past give credibility to the videos we see today. It shows a timeline. It shows a species that has been interacting with us on the fringes for generations. They are not aggressive, usually. They are observers. They watch ships. They watch ferries. They watch us walking on the beach. But here is the catch. There is a massive difference between seeing something swimming in the water and finding a body washed up on the sand. Sightings can be dismissed as illusions. A physical body, well, that is a lot harder to explain away. And sometimes the ocean spits out things that it was supposed to keep hidden forever. The final verdict. It is one thing to see a shadow. It is another thing to smell the decay, to see the flies buzzing around something that looks human but isn't. This is where the story gets visceral. This is where we move from maybe to what is that? Let's talk about the Florida incident. A commercial crab boat was working after a hurricane. The waters were churned up, pulling things from the bottom that usually stay buried. They hauled up a net that was heavier than usual. When they dumped the catch onto the deck, the crew went silent. Among the crabs and seaweed was a body. It was gray and leathery. It had a torso, 2 arms, and a head, but the face was flattened, almost like a pug, with sharp, needle-like teeth. and where the legs should have been, there was a fused, mutilated tail fin. The captain thought it was a deformed dolphin, but dolphins don't have hands. This thing had 5 distinct digits on each limb, with webbing in between. The crew was terrified. Sailors are superstitious people. They thought it was a bad omen. They reportedly took a few photos on disposable cameras, photos that have circulated on dark web forums for years, before tossing the carcass back into the sea. They didn't want the government involved. They didn't want their boat quarantined. They just wanted to get rid of the monster. But the description they gave matches perfectly with the aquatic ape theory. This is the idea that millions of years ago, a branch of early humans went back into the water to find food. We lost our fur. We developed a layer of subcutaneous fat, just like whales, and we learned to hold our breath. What if some of us stayed in the water? What if they evolved while we built cities? Then there is the India anomaly. After the tsunami in 2004 and subsequent high tides years later, weird things washed up all over the coast of Tamil Nadu. One specific photo went viral before being scrubbed from the mainstream internet. It showed a small, dried-out body on the sand. It looked like a monkey at first glance, but the ribcage was wide and barrel-shaped, designed to withstand high pressure. The tail was long and powerful. Locals gathered around it, poking it with sticks. They knew the local wildlife. They knew every fish in the Indian Ocean. They had never seen this. The body was allegedly taken by forestry officials. And then, silence. No news report, no museum exhibit, just a rumor that it was a distorted fetus of a manatee. Yeah, right, a manatee with fingers and a high forehead. It doesn't add up, and that's putting it lightly. The ocean is deep. The pressure down there is crushing. Creatures evolved to survive. If a humanoid species lives in the deep trenches, they wouldn't look like supermodels with seashells. They would look scary. They would have gray skin to blend in with the dark. They would have large eyes to see in the gloom. They would be fast, efficient killers. The bodies that wash up are the mistakes, the sick, the old, or the ones caught in storms. They are the evidence that nature is experimenting with the human form in ways we don't understand. We have explored less than 5% of the ocean. 5%. Imagine walking into a library, reading the first page of one book, and claiming you know every story in the building. That is us. We are arrogant. We think we are the masters of the earth, but 70% of the earth is water. We are just guests on a blue planet that belongs to them. The viral videos, the government reports, the historical letters, the washed up bodies, they are all puzzle pieces. And when you put them together, they form a picture that we are afraid to look at. It implies that we have cousins down there. Cousins who have watched us destroy the planet while they wait in the dark. Cousins who are now starting to surface, breaking the silence. So here's the deal. You can choose to believe that every single one of these stories is a lie. You can believe that the AI analysis is flawed, that the mayor of Kiryat Yam was crazy, and that the Japanese soldiers were hallucinating. You can believe that the ocean is just full of dumb fish and plastic. But ask yourself this. Why are the sightings increasing? Why are there more videos now than ever before? Some experts think it is because of us. We are using louder sonars that hurt their ears. We are overfishing their food sources. We are heating up the ocean. Maybe they are not coming up to say hello. Maybe they are coming up because they have nowhere else to go. The pattern is undeniable. First, it was sailors in the 1800s. Then it was soldiers in the wars. Now, it is tourists with smartphones. The encounters are getting closer to shore. They are getting more frequent. If these creatures possess intelligence, which the brain size of the washed-up specimens suggests they do, then they are aware of us. They know what we are. And maybe, just maybe, they are deciding that it is time to make their presence known. The next time you're at the beach, standing at the edge of the water, look at the horizon. Look at the waves breaking. Think about what lies beneath that surface. It is a whole other world, a world that does not follow our rules. We spent so much time looking up at the stars, wondering if aliens would visit us. We never stopped to think that an alien civilization might already be here, sleeping in the darkness of the deep, waiting for the right moment to rise. Are we ready for that contact? Probably not. But ready or not, the ocean is waking up. And what they are saying about us. Well, let's just say they have been watching long enough to know exactly who we are. So, do you think the government is hiding a second civilization underwater, or is this all just a mass hallucination? Drop a comment with your theory. If you want to stay safe on land, hit that like button and subscribe. You won't believe what we find next.